Good evening, Demon fans, and welcome back to the Demonland podcast. My name is Andy, and well, what a week it's been for the Demons. Our match was postponed as a result of a positive COVID test to one of our opposition's players. A new date for that match is still in limbo, and as a result, we may have effectively been punished as a result, for something that we had no control over. Joining me tonight to discuss this strange weekend is regular co-host Grapeviney. Good evening, Grapeviney.
Good evening, Andy, and good evening to all the Demonlanders out there.
Also joining us tonight, long-time Demonlander George. Welcome back, George.
Good evening, Andy. Good evening, Grapeviney and everyone else. It's obviously a very normal season we're having here. We've got the two Magpies teams at the top of the ladder in June. Richmond's in 9th position. Seems like a normal year to me.
Absolutely, but what a strange weekend it was. Before we go into the timeline of the events, where were you guys when you found out that we were not going to be playing this weekend, George? How did you find out?
I found out when I was trying to install KO on my on my screen so that I'd made sure that I had coverage no matter what happened in this year, but it was all a complete and utter waste of time in the end.
Grapeviney, how did you find
Andy,
it?
I'll never forget the time and the day and where I was when I learned that Connor McKenna had attended an open house inspection and our forthcoming game was to be cancelled. I was watching the footy that afternoon, so I think I had Demonland open, so I knew fairly quickly and tuned into Gill's press conference and had steam coming out of my ears a short time after.
Before we go into what we thought should have happened, obviously because we're the ones that were put out by it, we're going to have sort of stronger opinions on this. The wider football world might not and might call us whingers, but we'll get into that in a minute. The timeline of sort of events seems to be, I'm not sure when he attended. Does anyone know when he possibly attended some open houses, like when that occurred?
I don't know anything, Andy. You are aware that he's returned a negative test today.
I am. Yeah. We'll get into that, but that just puts more doubt on the whole situation and even COVID testing in general for the general public, what that all means, and stuff like if you've had it in the past, can you get it again? Does something remain? It just puts doubt over the whole thing. It sort of highlights it even more. So that's a frustrating thing for the general public. But on Wednesday, June 17th, he's tested for COVID. They gave him the COVID test, as they do for all the teams. Do you know what the procedure is with teams? Like, I know that 48 hours prior to playing they have to have a test, but do they have tests during the week? Do either of you know what the testing procedure is for teams?
No.
I'm not aware of anything specific, but it sounds like they've had a number of tests during the week for teams. I really wouldn't know what the AFL's prescribed.
Well, he's had a test on the Wednesday, so they at least have a few days.
Twice a week.
Yeah, it must be. On Friday in the morning, he's returns a negative test. He completes contact training with teammates that day. According to what I read, it was his 5th negative test since returning from Ireland. Then on Friday afternoon, they're tested for COVID again. So there must be, if they were tested Wednesday and then tested on Friday 2 days later, must mean they have multiple tests leading up to the games. So he's been tested on the Friday afternoon. So after he's trained in the morning. The next day, on Saturday, no more than 20 minutes after he arrived at the club, he is told that his Friday test returned a low-grade irregularity. What that means, we don't know, and that's also...
Well, I think it just means like a low viral load, so it showed up, but not in a significant way, but enough to suggest that he'd had it.
Is it like being half pregnant? I don't know. Well, so as a result, he's tested again and told not to train, and presumably he was sent home. And but I guess the question is, and what they've been trying to ascertain is, who did he have contact with? It seems that they have all clubs seem to be required to videotape training. I don't know what that means. Do they have a wide-angle lens camera showing everyone and everything you come in contact with? Obviously, they don't have cameras following every single person and what they're doing within the four walls of the training facilities. So after that, Saturday afternoon, Essendon and the AFL are informed of McKenna's positive COVID-19 results, but he hadn't shown any symptoms. And then I guess we all know what happened in terms of them postponing the game. So I'll go to you, Grapeviney, first. What do you think should have happened? Obviously, the AFL probably have, I don't know if they had hard and fast rules themselves or what would happen if someone returned a positive test. By the outcome of what's actually happened with them postponing and playing it, well, they haven't given a date, but they've said it'll be played at some time at a later date. They obviously have some plans, but what do you think should have happened in this week? Should they have been forced to forfeit? Are you happy with what's happened? Give me your thoughts.
I think it's a close call in terms of the forfeiting. Look, whether he depends to some extent on whether he broke the rules, and they've been a little bit vague about that. I don't know whether he was allowed to attend to house inspections, or a suggestion that he might have attended family gatherings that he was not meant to. But look, we had two players who fell foul of the rules only a short time ago ourselves. We're lucky that neither Spargo nor Cozzy got COVID. It could have been us.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe we would.
And then I don't think there would have been as many calls for the 4 points to be handed up had the shoe been on the other foot. So, look, I think on balance, the AFL's probably done the right thing in not giving us the 4 points, and the match will be rescheduled. I expect that the season will be further interrupted. I was extremely surprised that the AFL and presumably health authorities determined that only one of his teammates was required to go into quarantine, given that he'd had a meeting with the 8 other backmen and trained. And I was surprised. We were watching Sydney were playing North when the news came through, and of course Essendon had played Sydney the week before, and I was surprised that the AFL didn't immediately take sort of action there. And
but he didn't play though in that game.
No, but he'd been back already in the country for some time. He would have been with his teammates, and at that stage they wouldn't have known when he was, when he was sort of contagious. So, I found it all to be a bit perplexing, but I appreciate too that the AFL is making it up as they go to a great extent, and society at large is having to do that. And as we're seeing with the spike in cases in Victoria, things aren't always going to plan.
No, definitely not. And I guess that they're saying that they've got to be flexible with everything, flexible in the fixturing, and in terms of perhaps having bye weeks at certain points so that they can sort of make up games that have been interrupted. I wonder how that's going to work out if a team like Essendon, something happens to them again. There's only a certain amount of bye weeks they can have, and if it's the same team over and over, if it happens 2 or 3 times and they have to forfeit or cancel a couple of games along the way, they're not going to be able to make up one particular team. There's not going to be 3 bye weeks for that team to make up. If it's just Melbourne Essendon, then down the line it's Sydney, whoever, they can do that. But it's gonna be a hairy situation if it's the same team over and over again. George, thoughts? Forfeit, not forfeit? Have you?
I think Grapevine summed this up beautifully in the one word, and that's perplexing. Simply because we don't know the facts behind the matter at this stage. We don't know how infectious he was at this stage. We don't know whether he's broken any AFL rules or community rules in any case. It might be sheer and utter bad luck. But I think as a club, we've got to listen to what I think Josh Marnie said during the week, and that is that we need to be resilient about these things. A lot of these things are being made up on the run simply because they have to be. The clubs are collectively in a dire position. The AFL's in a dire position if games don't go ahead. There's an awful lot of money invested in making the broadcast deal work for the broadcasters this year. I think it was interesting. There was some conversation from one of the people on Demonland about the fact that some of these players just don't seem to get it about what's at stake here. The McKenna situation and even our own situation with Cozzy and Spargo, Ollie Wines from Adelaide. The AFL is expecting these players to actually hold to a higher standard than what the community is being expected to, simply because the risks are that this whole competition this year might just fall in a big heap, which will put a lot of people out of a job, more so than what they have at the moment. Let's just hope that a few people can pull their heads in and do what they're meant to be doing. But at the end of the day, as Josh said, we've just got to wear what we've got. I think Jack Viney was similar. Just we're concentrating on Geelong this week. It's no use worrying about what's gone under the bridge. Just get on with what's been put in front of us and play a game of footy.
Yeah, I think my position on this has softened a little bit. I was sort of in the 4 points camp, but not so much to get a freebie out of it. I was more put out by the fact that we're going to have to play Essendon at some point later in the year, or possibly in a couple of weeks when they do the next lot of fixturing, and that would obviously mean that we'd have to play sort of a midweek game, or they'd have to sort of possibly shoehorn us in somewhere, which means potentially we'd have to play 3 games in a 9, maybe 10-day period. And doing something like that means we've got to manage our loads, to suit that, to fit that in, meaning, it affects the game, before the post, the new game with Essendon, that game with Essendon, and the game after that, and possibly the game after that. We're going to have to manage loads of training and all that. So it puts us out. We haven't actually done anything wrong, but, when you look at the Cozzy and Spargo situation, possibly it could have happened to us. It might happen to us in the future, and it could be something that, a player could contract it through, no fault of their own. It could happen because we play another team that someone has it. So, it could happen to us. So my position softened a little, but I was more put out by the fact that we're going to suffer down the track, and it's something that we had, nothing to do with. And at the time, sort of earlier in the week, there was the thought that that there were perhaps 8 players from Essendon that weren't going to be allowed to play, that they'd have to quarantine for two weeks, and their whole backline, in fact, because they've been training, in groups of 8, in line positions. So I was a little bit put out because they were going to perhaps play Carlton this week without a backline, and therefore Carlton are the big winners out of this. And that sort of put my nose out of joint a bit. There was talk, perhaps we should play Essendon midweek, as in tomorrow. But apparently Melbourne were given the assurance by the AFL, it seems, on Saturday, that there wasn't going to be a midweek game, a make-up game, that that quickly. So we were given permission to play the intra-club game this week. So yeah, I guess I've softened a little bit. It is what it is, and look, there might be more bumps along the road as we go. And
there's already been enough bumps that the season is compromised beyond rescue anyway. Our round one game was a non-game, if we're honest about it. Told half an hour before that the season was about to shut down indefinitely. So really, we've played one proper competitive game of football in about 11 months. And, we had a last-minute training session thrust upon us on the weekend. So I think for a lot of people, and I get in this sense reading the board, that interest is waning in the season. It certainly is waning in non-MFC games. We're seeing a lot of sides going quarters, halves, three quarters without scoring. Sides kicking 4, 5 and 6 goals for a game, sometimes winning, sometimes as a winning score even. I think that, there's been so many compromises that it's pretty hard to convince yourself that it's a normal season.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, Jace, that it's difficult for anybody to take it seriously. I did a couple of stats on the games that have been held this year, and apart from our withdrawn game and the drawn game between Richmond and Collingwood, that leaves 25 games having been played in the first 3 rounds. 21 of those games, whoever was leading at quarter time won the match. I can't recall teams not being able to come back, or whether the coaches are going super defensive in the last 3 quarters or once they get their nose in front. But it's not a good spectacle of what we're seeing at the moment. But like I said, the AFL have only got one interest, and that's to make sure that something is put before the broadcasters, so that they can get them the money that ultimately is going to pay for the clubs to continue to operate into next year. It's a pity, but we just got to put up with it, I think, in the short term.
I think you're right. There's no alternative. The AFL has to press ahead, and I don't think they can come out and say, oh, well, the premiership won't count and this is just like a round robin thing or something. I think they have to keep up the pretense that it's the real deal. And, we've got to keep our fingers crossed that we can return to normal next year, hopefully on the back of a vaccine.
Indeed.
Yeah, at the moment, there's no certainty that that's going to be the case, and particularly in light of McGregor's testing that's come back today saying that he's negative. It'll be interesting. Obviously, they're going to retest him again. That'll be interesting to see what happens there too. It's interesting times ahead. I find with other games, non-Melbourne games, I've definitely sort of lost interest in that. We were talking about this before air, the lack of the crowds sort of takes something away from the game. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know. I just don't have the interest, and perhaps because there isn't high scoring, it's not a good spectacle this year.
Terrible footy, a lot of it.
Yeah,
absolutely terrible.
It is. It didn't help that we didn't get to watch our team play on the weekend. So watch this space. Do either of you know when the next lot of fixturing comes out? George, have you heard anything in terms of that?
This is a pure guess, but Mark McGowan, I think, from the Western Australian Premier on the news tonight, was talking about the AFL coming out with discussions about a Western Australian hub in the next couple of days. It sounded like some decision had been made, which means fixtures would be a consequence of that. So I would think that there'll be something come out within the next week, if that is the case. Again, we just got to wait and see what comes out. But
the Northern Territory News today were running very strongly, suggesting the same sort of thing, that they were going to be part of an AFL hub plan going forward too. So, watch this space.
Well, didn't Western Australia announce that? Well, they said that the two West Coast teams, when they come back, they can home quarantine.
That's correct.
Yeah,
yep.
and they've also announced crowds now for Optus Stadium in Perth too, of up to 60,000, which I think is the capacity there anyway. So that seemed a bit bizarre to me. Perhaps I'm...
No, I saw that as well. So,
but is that the capacity is 60,000? Isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's returned to normal, I guess.
Yeah.
So look, that's going to be a huge advantage for West Coast and Freo,
and also for South Australian teams, because I believe their government has announced at least 50% capacity. I think even as early as the next week can be put in place. So there's certainly
that
here.
Totally changes the dynamics of the game too. So just something we've got to cop on the chin and move on.
So some Victorian teams will probably be going to Western Australia. We might avoid that, having played West Coast in the first round. Depending on how they do it, we might go there for maybe a day. Like I don't know how that will work, but we might have to play Freo or something. I'm sure the AFL will send us there to play Freo. But I don't know.
I think the plan, Andy, is that a team will go there for 2 weeks.
Yep.
So that they play West Coast and Freo.
Well, that rules us out.
And then probably have a bye arrangement the week after or something like that, and then sort of swap other teams in through that arrangement. I'm a little bit unsure about how West Coast get to play games not in Western Australia anymore. But again, the fixtures are a little bit flexible at the moment, and I'm sure that we'll be given the raw pineapple end again.
Yeah, but look, we might escape that if that if what you say is correct, and going over there for 2 weeks to play both teams. That we've played West Coast, so that might rule us out that way. And you mentioned that there might be a bye the week after. Well, we might have to play Essendon in any bye sort of situation. So
or that we just play Fremantle over here.
Well, that's the way it was meant to be, wasn't it, early in the year?
Exactly.
So I'll take that. It's certainly a bizarre year. Let's, well, I guess we can turn our attention. But there was a game. Played this week. We didn't get to see it. I guess it was never really on the cards for us to have vision of that game. Melbourne aren't going to put complete vision of what's effectively a training run of match simulation for other teams to dissect. If we don't have to. So I don't think there was ever a lot of supporters wanted it, obviously. But we did get to see all the goals. So we've got a bit of vision from the game.
That there's 24 hours in this. The club's done well to put anything out to fans. So in the circumstances, it's a good effort, I thought.
Oh, well, I assume, I'm not sure where the footage came from, whether Melbourne had to set up their own stuff or because there was going to be a game there anyway, whether they were able to use Channel 7's cameras, or at least one of them, because I think was there multiple in the vision that we saw? Was there multiple cameras going on? I'm not sure if it was just the one angle that we were seeing, but I'm sharing a screen with you guys at the moment, so we can have a look at some of the vision. George,
Yep.
The teams that were put out, we had our. It looks it looks from what I can ascertain from this, it looks like it started off sort of an A team and a B team. And when I say A, as in the regular team, possibly the team that was going to be lining up was in one team. Is that what it looked like to you, George?
Yeah, that was the case, and then as the game progressed, they obviously tried different people in different locations and swapped them around to the other side. You can't actually play a serious sort of scratch match like this by putting all your talent in one side. You'll finish up with a scenario of having all your good forwards and all your good backs in one half of the ground and nothing else happening. So. Yeah, they spread around obviously as it went on. So it was interesting as from a point of view of seeing what the individual players were doing. I think it was the sort of thing that coaches go through on a Monday morning after a game to show individual players what they should have done or what they liked them doing. So yeah, it gave us an opportunity to see those sort of things. It's probably the only vision we saw this week, so we spent most of the week looking at it.
I'm trying to just pull up from effectively was the match day thread, even though we didn't get to see any vision during the game. I'm just seeing the goal someone had put up who had kicked goals. All right, I just wanted to have that up. All right, well, we'll see how this goes. I'm sharing the screen with the boys now. So we've got vision now of I think that was Jordan goes over to Dunkley, who kicks to Gus without the helmet, who kicks into Mitch Brown for his first goal. And I think Brown ended up with 3 for the day. So I'll just might pause it now. We might talk about Brown now. We can merge this with the sort of our changes for next week. Look, we obviously we have limited vision. All we're seeing is the goals that have been kicking, a little bit of what's led up to it. But if you just look at the goals for the game, 2 names are sort of absent from there. 2 big names when we're talking about our forward line, Tom McDonald and Sam Wiedemann. Neither of them kicked a goal. Now, we could, obviously we don't have the vision. We don't know what they did. We don't know what their, perhaps they were playing further up the ground and that, their role wasn't to be goal scorers. But I don't know, boys. Does the lack of goals on their part, is that worrying? George, I'll go with you first.
Not so much. Especially if you're trialling things in a game. Tom McDonald in a couple of those goals later on that we'll probably work through. He was obviously working further up the ground, which is good. That's the link role that you need. That leading forward, taking the contested marks on the wing area and then delivering. The real concern was Wiedemann, that I saw very little. I think in one of the shots he did a hand pass to, I can't remember who it was, but there was no Wiedemann leading, no Wiedemann marking, which is a real concern, especially when you've got someone who's Brown, who's probably a third choice, kicking 3 goals in the game. So, I think Wiedemann's got a lot of work to do to get back to being in contention for the games. What I did take out of this first particular one, you'll see when Dunkley kicks the ball. If you have a look in the top left-hand corner, as he kicks the ball, there are 3 defenders who are running forward, and they get caught out of position, and then they have to run back.
Yep.
And that leaves that huge hole for Brown to run into. That was the coaching point that I think I'd be bringing to these guys. You're moving too quickly up the ground, and none of them get to the contest. They're just sitting in the space doing nothing there, but leaving this huge space when they get caught behind the ball and going back after the Dunkley kick to Brown just waltzed in there, to the 40-metre mark straight out in front. It's not what you want to see.
There was no one sort of in front of him. He had a beautiful space to run into. Omac was about 5-10 metres behind him as well. So it's something that I like about Brown. I'd like to see more of him in the seniors, but it could be a case that he performs in the twos, and obviously we're not going to get to see him perform in the twos this year. But then when he gets to the seniors, sort of doesn't do anything. But we'll see. You got to give him a chance to prove himself. And
he's got a body that'll be there at the end of the season, or when people start to get some injuries after. We've only been into it effectively 2 rounds so far, and injuries will occur, and I'm sure at some stage we'll be looking for another body to stick in the forward line.
Well, he was brought in sort of as that insurance, perhaps if Tommy Mack went down like he did with the knee later in the year last year, or if Ian Wiedemann had his issues with his hips. So that's why he was brought into the team, but we might see him sooner rather than later. Hey, he played in the first game, didn't he? Did he?
Yes,
yeah. He did, yeah.
Yeah, made lots of drop marks.
Yes, that's correct, yes. All right, so he kicked a nice goal from on 50 for the blue team, which is the B team. So as we've got a ruck contest.
Is there anything to be read into the fact that Angus Brayshaw started in the blue team, or is that just, as George said, just making sure that there's a bit of talent on the other side too?
Possibly. Well, that's an interesting one because he was named in the team.
And did Jones start in the A's or the B's?
Jones is in the B's, in the blue team. Perhaps they did that just to even up the midfield a bit. I would assume that the B team midfield would have consisted of Sparrow. Well, it depends where Jones actually started. It looks like in this bit of footage where we've got paused at the moment, it looks like Jones and Langdon are on each other. So it's possible that Jones played on the wing, or at least started there, because this is earlier on in the game. But look, we're going off very little amount of vision, so it's hard to tell. Ruck contest between Maxi and young Austin Bradkey. A bit of a mismatch in age and talent. It looked like from the first bit of footage that we saw, it looked like Jackson was playing deep in the forward line for the blue team as well. So they had a 2-pronged Brown and Jackson. So, but in some of the vision we did, some of the pictures we saw from the weekend, Jackson did play ruck. But it looks like perhaps Bradkey was going as the first ruck for the Blues, but. Let's go on with this ruck contest. Melksham gets it out of the ruck. Snap. And this is a bugger. He snapped. It fell short, and Jaden Hunt was in the goal square, one-on-one with Jeddah, and takes the mark. I've got a bit of... This is a bit of a point of contention with me with our snap kicking. I don't believe many of our players have much penetration in their snap kicking. And where did Melksham took this snap? What's he about? 30 metres out?
Yeah.
And it's dropped, a good 5 metres short. I doubt he was passing that. I think he was having a shot for goal. I see lots of opposition players get the ball 40 out the ball out of a pack and just snap around their body and goes through post height. I never see that with many of our players. I don't know if you guys notice that.
I think it's a league-wide thing. I think you're getting mixed up with some of the historical videos that have been shown on Fox before the season resumed. Because when I go back and watch Alan Jakovic, he used to snap from 50 and it'd go through a post height on his wrong foot. And it's true that certainly in my experience, it seems that it's across the board, not just at Melbourne. But yeah, players can't snap the distances.
So what's happened? What's happened to players? Because that's not a part. He wasn't passing then. That's fallen short. And I noticed Brayshaw does it. I've seen a lot of them do it. I notice it all the time that there's just no penetration in those snap kicks.
Who knows?
Yeah, It's unusual because if you remember in the Hawthorn final last year, Melcham snapped one from about 50. So he can do it, but
Well,
he's obviously not doing it.
that one was
Not
sort
doing
of,
it.
that's more across
the body.
That's across the body, so you get a bit more penetration in that. I'm talking about those pure, like those snaps out of the air that they do actually go sort of high up. But I don't know. I maybe I am confusing it with sort of past memories. But I just noticed that we don't seem to do it, and perhaps it is league wide. But look, but I can't kick like that. So anyway, we'll move on.
There was a little bit at the start of that play there where Max tapped it out. If you have a look,
I'm going back
this
to
is
it.
this is some of the unseen work that Oliver does at the very start. You'll see that Oliver actually takes Brayshaw out so that Petrarca's released.
Yes, because it was
you get
Petrarca.
absolutely no statistics for that, but effectively that whole goal was a result of Oliver doing the work. See how
Yep. Oh yes.
Locked
Beautiful.
him out beautifully, and Petrarca's released. And releasing someone like Petrarca in that situation is lethal, as we've seen. But so, yeah, it's nice to see and the talent that's there in someone so young.
Well, there was a situation there. They're both. It looks like Brayshaw and Petrarca are on each other. Clary goes over, blocks Brayshaw to release Petrarca. It's a beautiful tap from Maxi, and the released Petrarca gets the ball. Absolutely beautiful, and then a handball from Petrarca to Melksham, who, as we talked about, snaps across his body and it falls short straight into Jayden Hunt's hand, who kicks a goal. Jayden Hunt we'll talk about. He only kicked the one goal. Sorry, I thought he'd kicked more than that, but he just kicked that one. He's obviously playing forward and sort of deep forward, it looks like, from that vision. We'll go on to the next one. So we can see the midfield setup here. Jonesy is in the middle at this ball up. So Jones is on Petrarca. Gorney's matching up against Bradkey. Who is Clary on there? George, can you tell as I release it? Jordan, I think. All right, we'll go back. So Jordan's in the middle. It'll look like Sparrow is on the wing with Langdon. Who are the two behind? That looks like Vandenberg and I want to just go back and see who. I don't know. I can't tell who that is.
No, I can't.
No. All right, we don't see the number, but it could have been either Dunkley. It could have been Dunkley. All right, we'll go back to that. That's from out of the middle. We get Maxi. A spill down. Oliver just beautiful. Gets the ball. Got so much time over to Salem. Kicks it into a contest that's dropped. Pickett's right at the fall of the ball. Handballs to Melksham, who picks it up and slots a goal on the run. There's a lot to like in that. Clary just beautiful. And then from the spoiled contest in the forward line, Pickett, and this is what we want to see. Pickett's, he just reads the ball so well as the ball hit the ground then. Gets it off to Melksham, kicking a goal. That's what we want to see.
Yeah, I was a little bit concerned about a couple of players in that. Brayshaw was one and Chandler was the other, who, when the ball was at that point sort of getting towards Cozzy, is that they seemed to be going at half pace and only accelerated once he had the ball, which was far too late. You can't afford at this level to be just trotting around the field and letting things happen. So again, it's the sort of thing I think the coaches would be pointing out to them.
Yeah. Next one we got another ruck contest. Max gets it out, but ball intercepted. Brayshaw gets it out. Was that a mark to? it mustn't have been a mark
Jackson.
to Jackson because he seemed to play on. So I just want to watch that again. The ball gets kicked out towards Jackson in the forward line. No, it looks like it might have been touched and called play on because you don't think that he would do that. But Jackson gets it out to Wiedemann, who it was actually quite a nice handball. Wiedemann, who did he handball it into to kick the goal in the end there? Was that Nib?
Bedford, I think, wasn't it? Or
No.
it was Brown.
It was Brown.
Again.
Yeah, it was for Brown's second goal. We got Bedford getting it down onto the wing, kicks it out. We've got a few loose players. I think that's Nibbler kicking it into Corey Wagner, who was sort of almost alone in the goal square, kicks a goal.
It was nice to see that delivery from Bedford. He had three options, I think, at that point, and he chose to go over the top and just release the players into space, which made it really easy for A and B running into the forward 50 there. Oh. So it was nice to see that.
All right. All right. Next one. Oh, that's sorry. I went back too far. So this is when we don't have a game to watch. This is the what we're. This one irked me a bit. What's happened to Stephen May to his kicking? We saw in the Carlton game a couple of his kickouts were atrocious, and he's got the ball inside the 50 arc and he's kicked it into the man on the mark, which has resulted in a goal to Bedford. It's unacceptable for someone who's supposedly one of the best kicks in the team.
The interesting thing from my perspective on that one was I don't know who in the hell he was kicking it to. The limited amount of vision we got when he's actually taking the kick, I can't see anyone on his side within range. It was obviously going to be a short kick of some sort.
Oh, it was. Yeah, there was
only blue people in the screen.
Even if that had not been intercepted by the guy on the mark, it would have gone to someone in blue. It was looking like it was a really short kick, and there was no one there. So yes, you're 100% correct there. So Bedford then mopped up for a goal. Yeah, interesting. And that was Gus over to Corey Wagner on the wing. Wagner finds Brown, who was out in front of Oscar McDonald. One of those stupid 50-metre penalties that we hate. Bennell got into that. What happened there was Omac left the mark for Bennell, but Bennell was in the protected space at the time, so it was a 50-metre penalty to Brown.
I think it was Rivers who left the mark.
Oh, it was Rivers, not Omac?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was.
He should never have left that chasing Wagner down the wing there. He was already well covered by Smith.
Yeah.
And Bennell, is coming in to cover up the very obvious lack of someone sitting on the mark. So can't blame him for that.
No. Ruck conscious. Tomlinson in the ruck, filling in duties for Max when Max is resting. Gets it over to Clary, who gives it off. Was that Melksham for his for another goal?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then we have Clary in the middle again, gets tackled, dispossessed. Jordan picks up. Then Jordan got a free. Oh, and another 50-metre penalty. Oh, yeah, that was.
I think what happened there, Max played on.
Yep.
When after the whistle, and again, silly 50s. You don't give away these sort of ones. That's the second one. I think there's another one subsequently coming up as well.
So what it looked like then after Jordan got the goal from the 50-metre penalty, almost everyone in the blue team went up to him. So he's in lieu of him kicking his first goal in AFL football, maybe his first goal on the G. We see T-Mac get it up, sort of up at half-forward flank, kicks long ball in.
This is nice, seeing T-Mac. That's exactly what we want him to do. That link man out the side, nice strong contested mark, and finding Fritsch in the forward line.
So Fritsch kicked 3 goals. We don't know what. I'll pause it here. We don't know. We don't have the point. How many points were scored? But our disappointment with Fritsch in the past couple of weeks, round 1 and round 2, being over two and a bit months, was his inaccuracy in front of goal. I think he had kicked 1 goal 6. Seeing him kick 3 goals, let's hope it wasn't 3 goals 6 that he kicked on the day. But good to see him finding the big sticks again.
Where you pause the next one, Andy, is just fantastic.
Yep.
Bonnell's got the ball above his head.
Yep.
And there are 7 blue players.
Yep.
Between him and the next red player.
Yes.
And watch what happens.
He gives it out to Gus, who's changed teams. Gus kicks it over into the pocket almost to Hannon. Hannon finds Pickett on the lead. Pickett from what was he, 35, 40 out, kicks a goal. So once again. Yep.
Once again, there was a little bit of concern there. How in the hell did Pickett get to be on his own 35 metres out? There's something not quite working. It might be the blue team's backlines not quite switched on, or they're not the
completely by himself.
But look, he's all on his own there.
Completely by himself in the hole. No one around him.
Or we could look at this the other way, and perhaps this is a good thing, and our forwards are now starting to find connection. And this is what we'll see in matches going forward.
What was interesting there, Bennell handballed it over to Brayshaw, who was obviously switched teams at this point. But when Brayshaw was playing on the blue team, he was helmetless. When he's changed to the red team, helmet's back on. I wonder what the thought process there, because often we see him at training without the helmet, but obviously game day he's wearing it. Just something interesting to note.
I went to a sort of a little presentation with Harms and Brayshaw last year, early on in the season, and somebody asked him about his helmet, and he said, look, in all honesty, the helmet doesn't do anything in terms of concussion, or he's been told by the medical experts that it really doesn't affect anything, but he wears it because his mum's worried. So if his mum wasn't at the game, that's okay.
Yeah. Well, presumably she has access to YouTube, so...
and she'll give him a tongue lashing when he gets home.
Maybe that's why. Maybe she turned up at halftime, and that's why he wore it. This one we got the blue team. Spargo gives it out to Wagner, who gives it back to Spargo. A snap sort of from the pocket. Nice to see Spargo get amongst it. In terms of Spargo, what happens there? He got the 2 weeks for the indiscretion. I believe the AFL gave him 2 weeks because he wasn't named in the Carlton match. So he got the penalty for that, the 2 weeks for that. That would preclude him from being selected the week after, because he had it when he got the penalty. He hadn't been selected in the team at the time. But
I thought it was a reflection on his seniority relative to Cozzy, and the fact that he led Cozzy astray. It was his decision, or he.
Oh, was it?
That's what I'd read.
Did you hear that? Because I didn't hear. I've been just assuming that that's why they gave him the 2 weeks. I didn't know that there was. I would have thought there should be one rule for all, regardless of seniority or leading astray.
Sure. I did read that on Demonland. So
Yeah, I thought it was because Spargo had organised to go out to this meeting and took Cozzy along, basically.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
I would
that
have.
then, for me, solved the riddle of why Jetta was roughing up Spargo on the weekend. Probably just protecting Cozzy and saying, don't you lead my boy astray.
Well, was it because it was Spargo that ordered the Uber? It was on his account that he got the 2 weeks. Okay, yep, fair enough. Anyway, what happens there? He played in this game. He was obviously allowed to because it's training effectively. I presume he has to serve out another week's suspension. But
I don't know on that one, but I would suspect that that's the case.
Yeah. He's kicked 2 goals in this game. So yeah, interesting. Anyway, it's probably a moot point. We've got it on the wing. Langdon doing what Langdon does, kicking it into the forward line, hitting up. Is that Fritchie? No, it's Melksham. Melksham. I can tell by his style of kicking. It's hard to tell sometimes because some of the when it's far away, they all look the same on this small screen. Who's got that there, George? On this is the blue team going forward, half forward flank.
Is that Jordan? Can't quite see.
No, that's I think it's Spargo. Spargo kicks it into a leading nibbler, who marks it sort of in right on a tight angle. Kicks a beautiful goal from the pocket. So it's interesting. How many has Nibbler got the 1 or the 2? Did he kick a goal before? Or no, he passed it in. So he's only got the 1. We got Tomlinson gets it from Viney on the wing, kicks it up to Hunt, who plays on in 50. Looks like he's going to have a shot for goal, but handballs it over to Hannon, who's now by himself because his opponent had to leave him. Kicks a goal right in the square. We've got the red team going forward again. Langdon off to Pickett. This is a good piece of play. Pickett kicks it in front of Hunt. Hunt picks it up on the 50, handballs it into Bennell, who kicks his first goal. Nice snap. Nice bit of penetration as well, I might add, guys, for a guy that doesn't have any calves. It was good to see Bennell get a goal in which, Pickett also was involved in. This is what we want to see, and this is why I want to be able to get back to the G to watch this. Next bit of play, all they show is we don't even know what happened. They've got Spargo just having a shot for goal, but it looks like it might have been as a result of maybe a 50-metre penalty or something. And he just sneaks it through as well.
And I want to know why they didn't get another 50 metres, because both Salem and Hibbert were about 2 metres away from him when the mark was set. But hey, obviously the umpires haven't improved.
No. We got Hunt on the wing, kicks it to a leading T-Mac again, which is almost identical to T-Mac's mark before. So, you know what? If T-Mac's going to be getting the ball at sort of true centre half forward and getting those leads and kicking it in, I guess that's what we want to see from him. If he's not going to be hitting the scoreboard, we want to see him being that link man on half forward. So T-Mac kicks it into the forward line to the leading Fretch, and a nice kick and nice lead as well. So that connection, Grapevine, that you were talking about, it absolutely worked then. Okay, Maxi gets it in the middle, off to Petraka, little chip pass off to Gussie, who kicks it into Melksham on 50. Melksham kicks that goal from 50. It's interesting, and that was the last goal of the game. Melksham ended up with 4, Fritsch 3, Brown 3, Spargo 2, 1 goal to Hunt, Pickett, Bennell, Hannon, Bedford, Jordan, and Wagner. Low scoring match. Presumably they played 16-minute quarters. You would assume that. So, yeah, low scores
There was
all
There's a
round.
real absence, not just in this match,
Yeah.
but generally of midfielders in our goal kickers, really, isn't there? Not many of our mids kick many goals.
Not while they're
Viney,
playing.
Oliver, Petrarca obviously does when he goes forward.
Yeah, but that's as a forward, not as a
That's
midfielder.
as a forward. And we need to get more out of the midfield.
Yeah, you notice that there are some teams where the midfielders do hit the scoreboard a lot, but you're right. We don't seem to do that.
And the other side of that is we saw a couple of examples of that, of the lack of defensive efforts by the midfielders. They seem to think that they've done their job in the middle and they don't have to go back and cover. But we saw that scenario where Pickett, I think twice, was on his own in that 50-metre arc. Those are the ones that should be cut. That space should be covered by mids just dropping back in there. So I think there's a question over the mids doing enough work up and down the field.
Yep.
Well, that's been sort of one of the things. The negative commentary about the D's is sort of the two-way running. So yeah, agree there. Look, we're going into a game against Geelong. Thankfully, we're playing them at the G. I guess on the plus side, we got to play at the G, or at least do an extended training session at the G. It's usually where us going to Cardinia Park after they've trained there. They train there all the time. So they're coming to our neck of the woods for once. So when do we don't really get to play them there. I know we played them in the final there, but it's not often we get to play them at the G. I'd love to know the stats. I think we rolled that out at one of the podcasts last year or the year before, but we really don't get to play them much at the G.
We have the last 2 years. We played them in, was it round 1 or round 2?
Yeah, that's true.
The Max.
Yeah, the Max miss. Yep.
And of course we played them early last year too, I think, didn't we?
No, we played them at Cardinia Park last year, early in the year. That's when May got injured. It was raining. It was a night or a twilight game. So no, we didn't play them at the G.
Yep. Sorry. Yep. Just the 18. Yep.
I've forgotten about last year.
It's been wiped. And I'm sure if 2021 goes back to normal, footy will probably forget 2020 pretty quickly. Except
can I just say on that point, I am genuinely retrospectively grateful that we had a poor year last year, because had we had a good year, we would have come into 2020 rightfully anticipating, if not expecting, a premiership, only to have it scuttled by this COVID nonsense. So from my perspective, that would be unbearable right now, to have come into the season knowing that we were a really good chance of winning the flag, and then to have it compromised in such a way.
Yeah, well, that certainly would have been disappointing if we were flag favourites, and we talked about it last week about the Asterix Premiership and how that's got to be viewed in history and at least by the wider AFL community. Obviously, you want to, if we're there at the end of the year, you want to win, but you just wonder how it's all going to be viewed by history. It's an interesting one. Binman in the chat room said that Ben Matthews on the Zoom session said the A team, as we're calling them, won the game by 10 points, and that they were 4 by 20-minute quarters, which is interesting that they played 20-minute quarters. Does that surprise you? I know that obviously playing 20 minutes gives them more time, and fitness-wise, I don't know. But if we're playing 16-minute quarters in the regular year, shouldn't they be trying to simulate, if they're doing true match simulation?
Maybe it wasn't with time on.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, good point.
And there's not the same level of intensity when you're playing with your fellow teammates. We didn't, while we were looking at the goals being scored, we didn't see too much tackling going on.
Are you suggesting the dancing with your sister analogy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess you don't want some punching on happening as
No,
happens.
we're not Adelaide.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
So this week, going into this week, do you anticipate any changes? The forecast. Look, I remember we were talking about the rain. There possibly was going to rain for the Essendon game. I'm not sure if it did. It rain much at all.
I think we got about 8 mils on the Saturday, and then 1 or 2 on the Sunday. But there wasn't very much on the Sunday, but the ground would have been slippery.
Yeah. Do we go? We went for a bit of a smaller team there. Do we change that up for Geelong, who probably have maybe a taller team than Essendon?
I wouldn't be surprised to see a change or two on the basis of different opposition and different conditions.
Anyone in particular?
I'd like to see. Well, I would have liked to see Wiedemann come back, but we didn't see much of him in the limited vision we saw of the intra-club match, and I suspect that if they do decide to go tall, they'll go with Jackson anyway. So, I think if they do, if they do anything, I think Jackson might be chief among those plans.
Were either of you surprised, given we did the podcast on Tuesday last week? It was before the, we sort of speculated what might happen, but Wiedemann the week before had kicked 5 goals, and so had Brown. Neither of them got the call up. It turned out that Jackson was initially named in the squad, but then was taken out. Did any of those moves surprise you, George? Or?
No, I think we anticipated all the players that were going to be in the overall team, and they dropped a couple at the end. I think Jones was dropped out and Jackson dropped out, but that could be just about what's happening on the day and who your opposition are directly. And I think that it'll be the same this week. I note that Viney, in an interview today, was pumping up Jonesy's efforts, which usually indicates to me when they do that on the club site that somebody is going to be selected. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him back in the side this week. I don't know who they're going to drop, but it was nice that having been able to play this scratch match, that we actually got some run into Hannon and Vandenberg and Bennell as well. So I think I don't think there'll be any of those ones dropping out, and their efforts. We didn't see much of Vandenberg in the scratch match, but certainly in the other two we saw enough that I think will guarantee them to stay in the side.
Yep.
Good point. Jones being dropped last week. I know that you mentioned that Viney said, that was pumping his tyres up, but have we seen the last of Jonesy?
Not the last of him. But look, if we see, the less we see of Jones means the more we're seeing of others that are overtaking him, and that's a good thing in terms of the long-term interests of the club. It might be difficult for Nate as he goes through to the transition now. He's in the twilight of his career, so this is going to happen more and more. But he'll be back. There'll be injuries. There might be loss of form, and he still has something to contribute. But we're getting at the end of the road.
And as well, 3 games in 10 days down the track, or 9 days,
Yep.
that might
Exactly
contribute. But I really feel for the guys like the Sparrows and the Jordans who aren't getting, because there's no reserves competition. There are going to be scratch matches along the way, but and they were lucky this week to sort of play in a sort of match simulation thing rather than 14 on 14. But it's going to be sort of hard for them to get in. But I guess if they do get the call up, they've got to, take the game by the scruff of the neck, because they've got to really have to impress if they want to stay in there, given that there's not a lot of opportunity to sort of impress the selectors.
Yeah, the example was set by Rivers. I think when you're given that opportunity, you've got to show something. So it's a pity. I'm great raps for Sparrow. He will get games this year. There's no doubt, and he's got the body that's ready to go. But also Jonesy's got a very resilient body as well. So even if he's not playing in these early games, he will play at a later stage, because I think he played 22 games last year, or certainly over 20. Which for a lot of players that was unachievable last year. So it's nice that we've got these options. I think we'll go for as hard and as tough a team as we can when you've got Selwood and Ablett and Guthrie and Dangerfield in the opposition mids. You need as many tough, hard in and unders as we can possibly put in there. So I doubt that we'll see the likes of a Sparrow or Jordan up against that sort of quality of opposition at the moment.
He's stuck on 287 games. At the moment, there are 16, less than that. 16, because we've still got that game to make up. Doesn't leave much margin for error. I'm guessing this is his last year. He was given a 1 year contract?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it depends what happens, because this year's been sort of a funny year. They might give him another year contract if his body's okay, and if he is still getting a regular game. But obviously, it's a watch this space. But I'd love for him to play 13 games and get that 300 games under his belt.
I think as a club that's the sort of thing that we need. We've only got Neats in that category at the moment. For such a loyal servant of the club, I don't think he needs to do it this year. We've only got a 17-round season. He's already missed two of the games, isn't it? So even if he gets 10 games this year or 8 games this year, plays for a filler role for next year for 5 or 6 games, that'll get him over the line. And I think there'll be plenty of opportunity for that. It's not like it's a long, hard season. It's not going to be a 22-round season this year. So the body isn't taking the same sort of beating. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets another chance at the end of this year if he doesn't get over the 300 this year.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else that we need to discuss? I don't think there's much going on besides that this weekend.
We just got the news in the injury report today about Petty.
Oh, yeah. That's
going out for surgery on a groin. Never good news. And the same for Hoare, who apparently had some sort of accident in the weights room and needs surgery on a quad.
So we knew that I think last week we already knew about the quad. I think we've just found out that Hoare requires surgery for that. Petty, have they announced that he needs surgery for that? I thought I read that he's going to go. He's seeing some other doctor to get that looked at, but I'm assuming that So both of them have been listed as indefinite. We know as Melbourne supporters that indefinite is never a good thing. We usually don't see them again for the rest of the year when that comes on. I guess the good news in terms of the injury list is that we came through the intra-club unscathed, which is a good thing. And the other news, well, it's never like to celebrate opposition injuries, certainly. But Stanley, Geelong's ruckman Reece Stanley, was injured and looks like he won't be playing this week against Max. Having said that,
Yeah.
we often don't fare well when that sort of happens either. Usually the guy that comes in tears us apart.
Yeah. If Stanley doesn't play, it'll be a big loss to them because he played very well. I was surprised. I think he finished the game, but had announced some injury afterwards. But not having him on the ground will make the Geelong mid's job very difficult. I don't know who they'll play as their second one. Maybe Radicalea, or they have to move him up the ground. I don't think they use B-Clavs anymore. Have to wait and see on that one, but it's a big out for them.
Also, a bit of a pity that we're playing them after the game that they just had. They'd be extremely disappointed in their efforts against Carlton. So they'd want to atone for that. Did you see the incident with Radicalea punching the ball back into play, costing them a goal? That was very Melbourne-esque, I thought.
Yeah, I thought they were a bit harsh on him because, look, his awareness was poor, but he might have thought there was a player to his side, so he might have thought that he was doing the safe thing and that perhaps somebody could still spoil it. Yeah. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt.
All right. Well, I think
it'd be interesting with Geelong. If they were horses, you would swab them after a game like that. Where they did nothing for 3 quarters, and the previous week they were unstoppable. That's I don't know what's going on down there, but let's hope they play the same way as they did in the first 3 quarters against Carlton.
It seems like the tale of this year so far. From week to week, teams are Jekyll and Hyde, and sometimes within one game they're that. We can attest to that from just 2 weeks ago. It seems like that's happening to a lot of teams. Teams are going missing after a certain time or waking up. Anyway, we'll see how it pans out. Boys, thank you very much for joining me on this sort of a strange week, certainly for the Demons. It's an extremely strange week for us. We got had our one day of release for the week taken away from us, so we had to fill it with watching some highlights of goals in a scratch match. Thank you, George, and thank you, Grapeviney, for joining me, and we'll be back next week.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks, guys.